Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Paul, the Canadian Snowman, and we're back with another episode of Geography Now. Amazing channel. They do every country in the world, and I'm going to do every country of the world with them and with you. And for this episode, we're on Burundi. Is that how you say it? Burundi? I'm sorry. I apologize if I'm way off. But yes, well, we're going to learn a lot about your country. And if you're not from that country, you're going to learn a lot. And you're going to learn with me and, you know, all that fun stuff. Sorry, my mind went blank. But yeah, anyways, let's jump into it. And before we do, if you guys just wouldn't mind to help me out, please hit that like and subscribe button. That'd be, I'd greatly appreciate it. Anyways, let's get. All right. There we go. Okay.
Have any of you seen the movie Hotel Rwanda? Well, okay, so for like the two of you that have, reverse the tribes, flip the script backwards, and that's basically Burundi.
I haven't seen it.
It's time to learn geography now!
Hey everybody, I'm your host Barbie. Today is our last country beginning with the letter B.
Woo!
That means let's finish this up with some style. And with style, I mean let's follow the exact same format we've been doing this whole time. Let's dissect the flag. The map is divided into 4 parts by a white diagonal cross. The upper and lower parts are red in color, while the left and right ones are green. The white color of the cross represents peace, the green represents the nation's hope and endeavors for future development, and the red symbolizes the suffering of the nation during the freedom struggle. The 3 stars in the triangular configuration stand for the 3 major ethnic groups of Burundi: the Hutu, the Tutsi, and the Twa, even though the Twa only make up about 1% of the population, but we'll talk about that later. The 3 stars also stand for the 3 parts of the national motto: Ubumwe, Ipikorwa, and Iterambere, which in the Kirundi language means unity, work, and progress. Despite the fact that unity has kind of been a hot button issue in this country for a while. We'll talk about that later. But first... Okay, so Burundi is kind of small, yet compact, yet widespread. Let's expound on that. First of all, if Lake Victoria was the eye of Africa, Burundi would be like the teardrop of Africa. Shaped like an arrow pointing down, Burundi is one of the smallest African countries, landlocked, located in East Central Africa, bordered by Tanzania to the east and south, Rwanda to the north, and a comfortably narrow slot with the Democratic Republic of Congo to the north and west. The remainder of the western part of the country is surrounded by Lake Tanganyika, which, by the way, used to be the former name of Tanzania. The country is divided into 18 provinces, each one named after the capital that resides in it, except for Bujumbura Rural, whose capital is Isale. Each province is also populated with a near proportionate ratio of residents, each one with about 500,000 residents. Yeah, Burundi did a real good job at spreading out. The capital is Bujumbura, located on the northwest coast of Lake Tanganyika, and a stone throw away from the Democratic Republic of Congo. It's kind of funny though, because a lot of Burundi's borders, especially with Tanzania, are kind of like partial river borders, in which they touch a river, but then Burundi is like, I think I'll claim this nearby creek instead, and then connect right back to the river again. Or maybe Tanzania is just kind of grabby. It's my river! Mine! Otherwise, Burundi's borders are incredibly open to their neighbors, oftentimes unmarked and virtually invisible, as it straddles farm fields and unified towns and communities that really don't care about distinguishing their nationalistic separations. Now, because Burundi is so small and compact, they have a wide web of road networks that surge throughout every corner of the country, many of which Google Maps does a horrible job at tracing and documenting. This makes them unique in that in Burundi, pretty much all of the country is accessible and navigable by road. Burundi is pretty straightforward in its domain, small and compact. I mean, there are roughly 5 times more people in Burundi than Botswana, and yet the country is 23 times smaller area-wise. After Rwanda, Burundi is the second most densely packed land country in Africa. This means Burundi actually has a lot more potential for dispersed cultivation, and let's talk about that in... When thinking about Burundi, you kind of have to picture something like a factory. Every area is used for something, and the entire thing is moving all at once. First of all, the country lies on the East African Rift, which includes the Kagera River, the most remote headstream and speculated source of the Nile River. Yep, it all starts here. The land mostly in the west and north is hilly and mountainous, and as you go to the east, the area kind of drops into a plateau. The majority of the land is used for pasture and agricultural production. Due to the high population density and yet the widespread dispersion of the people, deforestation has actually been a major issue, as only about 600 square kilometers of natural untouched forest remains in the country. Alright, here's the thing. You know how in high school you had to learn the periodic table? Well, somewhere between the alkalis and the halogens, you came across that horrible mess of unrecalled metals consigned to oblivion. Well, Burundi has those elements. The country has quite a few known deposits of elements like vanadium, niobium, tantalum, and yes, even a little bit of molybdenum. Look, I try my best to pronounce location names, but when it comes to chemistry, I have no standards, people, okay? We don't have time to calculate the covalent bond electron sequences, okay? That is not my job. Look, I could go on with physical geography, but let's be honest, you pretty much know what I'm gonna say. Cash crops like coffee and tea are grown, 60% agriculture GDP, 90% subsistence farming dependent, yada yada yada. Let's just cut to the chase. The people of this country are really what define it, and let's talk about that. Okay, so here's where things are gonna get a little crazy, because Burundi has kind of been in a little bit of a pickle for a while now. The country has a little over 10 million people, making Burundi one of the most densely populated countries in Africa. The majority of the population, about 83%, are from the Hutu tribe, and about 16% are from the Tutsi tribe. Pay attention, because soon we're gonna explain how these two people groups, the Hutus and Tutsis, have greatly shaped and molded the political, social structure of this entire country, and not only that, but also areas around the region. Finally, you have a really small minority of people from the Twa tribe, whom are kind of regarded as the bush people, and a couple thousand whites and Asians living in the country to round things up. Okay, so in order to understand how Burundi functions, you kind of have to know two things. One, who exactly are the Hutus and Tutsis, and two, you have to know a little bit of history. I'll try to break it down in the fastest way I can, because if you're like me, you just want to get to the point. Hutus and Tutsis are basically indistinguishable from each other and came from the same people group. Many Burundians and Rwandans will tell you that the perpetuated stereotype is that Hutus are a little bit shorter and stockier with wider built bodies used for manual labor, while Tutsis are taller and leaner with svelte physiques used for adorning themselves with beautiful garbs of the high class. I don't want to say in the most extreme sense, think of...
Is that true, or that I'm just curious from like people have been in this Rwanda, or people are actually living there. Is this true? Like does that even get brought up there, or that's just a just stereotype? I mean, probably obviously just a stereotype, but like, do people actually bring that up, and is there like a thing over there? Just curious.
Lord of the Rings, elves, and dwarves, but yeah. The thing is, it all pretty much started with class and not ethnicity. Hundreds of years ago, anybody who pretty much built up wealth and status pretty much just automatically became a Tutsi, even if they affiliated with the Hutu tribe prior. It was pretty much just a social structure. Both Hutus and Tutsis speak relatively the same language. The only difference is that Rwandan Hutus and Tutsis may have a slightly different dialect, but it's totally mutually understandable. Essentially, after a short 20-year unsuccessful stint by the Germans, Burundi was under Belgian colonization. Kind of. It was more like a king's land rather than a colony, until independence in 1962. Historically, the Hutus always had larger numbers in populace in Burundi. However, Tutsis retained most of the political dominance in the area, and it all had to do with the fact that the Tutsis had a kingdom. And when you have a kingdom, that means you have power! The Belgians kind of catered to the local social structures and enabled the Tutsis to maintain their ruling influence. And you can probably guess what happens next in this scenario. Yeah, when colonizers leave their colonies, things get pretty crazy pretty fast. Essentially, this led to the Burundian genocide. I'm not gonna get into too much detail, but essentially the quickest way I can put this, for 20 years it was the Tutsis pushing down the Hutus, then for about 10 years it was the Hutus pushing down the Tutsis, and then finally in 2005 it subsided, kind of, but then recently, yeah. Okay, let's move on. French and Kirundi are the official languages, however,
So is there kind of like a maybe like a little civil war there, where like there's just a big rivalry between the two? Is there like a bunch of like real bad stuff going on with that? Anyways.
languages. However, English and Swahili are widely taught. Most citizens are polyglots with trilingual or quadrilingual capabilities, learning all 4 languages in elementary and middle schools. Yeah, in Africa, you gotta get them while they're young. Here's the thing. For the longest time, Burundi used to have a monarchy, and today still kind of does, even though most of the royal house is in exile. I mean, Princess Esther Kamatari ran for president in 2005, but it didn't quite fall through. And then you have the Hutu president, Pierre Nkurunziza. Okay, so look guys, you're gonna kind of start seeing a pattern going on in Africa, and it kind of goes like this. Term 1, having fun. Term 2, watching you. Term 3, felony. Term 4, oh, you gonna get assassinated. Essentially, Nkurunziza just broke the constitution and went for a 3rd term, causing an uproar for both Hutus and Tutsis. This resulted in the exodus of over 100,000 Burundians, one of which helped me with this video. Thanks, Renavat! Speaking of helping people, have you ever had a friend who was so dramatic about their ex that they just broke up with that they kept using you as a crutch for consolation, and for a while you tried to console them for as much as you could, but then you kind of got a little tired of all their calls at 2:45 a.m. and then you put an embargo on them? Yeah, that's kind of like Burundi. Burundi is dramatic. Since independence from Belgium, the country has pretty much either been in a constant state of internal conflict or straight up civil war. Although some years were a little bit more calm and peaceful in comparison to others, overall there's this perpetual looming ambiance of tension that covers the entire area to this day. This is partially the reason why Burundi doesn't really have a wide tourism sector. It's kind of like being invited to dinner at your Italian cousin Vito's house on poker night. You know somebody's leaving in a body bag. And hey, I can say that because I'm part Italian, okay? And I'm pretty sure somewhere I have a cousin Vito. Burundi used to have pretty good relations with all of their neighbors, but after the whole civil war thing, hundreds of thousands of Burundians have fled the country all over the world, but most heavily in their immediate neighbors, and the most, over 300,000, in Tanzania. Now, if you don't know anything about Tanzania, Tanzania is kind of like the big, chill, happy-go-lucky uncle of Africa. They have over 120 tribes that they have more or less kind of successfully coalesced into a unified nation. That's kind of impressive. So when Burundians came over, Tanzania initially was like, yeah, no worries, we'll help. But then things got really messy. Burundian rebels used Tanzania and other states as bases for insurgent activities. Accusations were made. And finally, Tanzania, along with other countries, were like, look, Burundi, you gotta get some stuff sorted out. Until then, we're putting an embargo on you. Burundi was like, okay, fine, I will. Jeez. And in 1999, the embargo was lifted and relations have gotten better, kind of. I don't know, well, whatever. Belgium, of course, has relatively good relations with Burundi, despite some unfavorable historical incidences that leave a sour taste in their mouths, but they've moved on. Embassies exist in both nations, numerous Burundians live abroad and are born in Belgium. Surprisingly, South Korea is a good friend. After the genocide ended in 1993, Korea stepped in and was like, hey, we get the whole nationalistic division thing. You want to hang out? And since then, they've developed good ties and relations. In terms of their best friend, however, most Burundians would probably say Rwanda. Rwanda is pretty much like the conjoined twin of Burundi. They share so much culturally, linguistically, and diplomatically that it's often hard to tell the two apart. The only difference is that Rwanda is currently led under a predominant Tutsi government and Burundi under Hutu. But even then, it's basically just like you're going to your brother's house. After centuries of kingdoms, empires, wars, colonies, and drama, these two countries have always been with each other and more or less love each other. In conclusion, yes, Burundi does have some stuff they gotta sort out. However, it's not completely unredeemable, and hopefully they get back on track because that lakeshore looks like a pretty cool getaway. Finally! We're done with the bees! That took like a year! Cambodia is coming up next.
It's just cool that you guys have a neighbor, like a friendly neighbor you guys can count on, hang out with. That's cool. That sucks about the Civil War and all that stuff and everyone leaving. And I really hope the country gets, back on its feet and figure everything out. It'd be cool if they had started, a tourism thing going on, but I guess that's not in the near future. But anyways, another very interesting, in-depth look at the country. So anyways, awesome stuff, awesome stuff. Anyways, before you please hit the like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and hopefully you continue the journey along with all these other cool countries. We're onto the seas, Cambodia. It's awesome. So let's do it. I'll catch you guys in future videos. Thank you everybody for watching.